Welcome, everybody, to the Elad Pod. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Very excited, and we have a wonderful special guest today, Representative Michael Burton of South St. Louis County, District 92. So we'll be talking to him about his journey to Missouri's State House. He has just completed his first session there, so we'll get to talk about all the things that he has been working on and what got him into this position in the first place. While you are watching, we love participation, so you're going to be able to comment, ask any questions that you want. This is really for you. It's an open town hall so that we can bring government back to the people of Missouri. We want this to be as accessible as possible. So while you're watching, if you could, go ahead and share the video from wherever you're watching from. If that's on Facebook, there's literally a button that says share. If you're on YouTube, you can send the link to folks. Twitter, retweet, wherever you are, it's all fine. If you are watching online, you will still be able to participate. For most of the show, there will be a phone number on the screen that you can text your questions to. Don't call it because I'm not picking up the phone in the middle of the show. Not yet, at least. If we could figure that out, that would be great. But you can definitely text your questions in, and we'll get those questions asked and hopefully answered. Yeah, the more folks, the merrier. So if you're watching right now, go ahead and comment with where you're watching from. That's my favorite part of the show, other than, of course, talking with our wonderful guests. And today I am very excited to bring to you all Representative Michael Burton. I've been following his story for quite some time, and just very excited to have this conversation with him and to bring you all in on it too. So let's make sure we still have him with us. Representative Burton, are you here?
I am here.
Oh, we've got you. Well, thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate having you, and thanks for taking the time to come on with all of us today. I'm a big fan, and I've been following the work that you've been doing for some time now, and I know a lot of folks, especially in the Affton area, are familiar with your work, and that's why they voted for you, so you're in office now. But I guess could you tell us, a little bit about your district and really what the job of a state representative is for folks who aren't as familiar?
Sure. So my district is South St. Louis County. It's District 92, and I represent Affton, Lakeshire, Concord, and Grantwood Village. And there's 163 of us in the House of Representatives that represent districts from all over Missouri. And South St. Louis County, the majority of it is in Affton, is who I represent.
Yeah. So Affton, that's probably the biggest concentration of folks in your district. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you folks are talking, we're talking about state government. We've got a lot of folks who, we talk about Congress, we talk about president, we talk about sometimes governor if we're lucky. But you're in the state legislature for the state of Missouri. What drew you to wanting to be there? Like, what was the draw? Because I think you and I agree on this. We want a lot more folks to be involved in government, and unfortunately, a lot of folks don't know as much about their local government as we might know about what's happening nationally. But what got you there?
Well, the first thing that got me there is Doug Beck, who held the seat before, called me and asked me to run for the seat, and I told him to let me think about it. And I'm not quite sure. This is not kind of where I saw my life, the direction of my life heading. I said, let me think about it. And I had a couple other people call me and ask me to really consider it. And after about 6 months, I decided I was going to go ahead and do it. Because you're absolutely right. We pay attention to, our national politics, and we pay attention to our local politics, like our county councils, our municipalities. And, we see that in the paper and on the local news. And, if we watch Fox News or CNN, we see our national, the national candidates in news. But we don't really pay attention to the state politics. And nobody should feel bad about that, because I was the exact same way. And I could tell you very little just a few years ago. So you shouldn't feel bad about that at all. But it's important that we focus on our state politics, because these are the things that really make a difference in your life. So I was asked to run for this seat, and eventually I decided I was going to go ahead and do it. And now that I'm in it, I love it, and I'm so glad that I was convinced to do it. And it's a really remarkable process.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, I mean, it's this is your first session, but it sure seemed like based on, a lot of the stuff that you share online that, you really do take a joy in that public service. And, you see you like, posting pictures with folks on, who are Republicans in different districts and really kind of making those connections and having some fun with it too, which I think is something that unfortunately is missing from politics a lot is, we're really at each other a lot. We're not really finding those common grounds, but it seems like that's something that you really enjoy doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I ran on that. I ran on working across the aisle,
Hmm.
and you know, it's I don't really hate any of these people. It's easy to get cynical and to really kind of demonize the other side,
Uh-huh.
and I just don't have it in me to do that. And we're all people, and we all come from different places. And I was lucky enough to grow up in a certain way where I had all these experiences where I have the mind frame that I do. So another representative from rural Missouri, I don't I don't demonize him. I try to, in some ways I feel bad for them. And so I try to just slowly bring them, on my side. And
Hmm.
the reality is that the Missouri Democrats, we're in the super minority. So in order for us to get what we want to get accomplished, we're going to have to work with people on the other side of the aisle if we want to get what we want to accomplish done. So, and I have some goals, and so I do, make those relationships, and I've learned a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think there was a reason. So I've known, now he's State Senator Doug Beck, but I've known Doug Beck for some time. And, he calls you and makes that recommendation or, makes that ask really of you to serve. And he takes that very seriously. I know he very much cares about the community and finding somebody to represent that community means a lot to him. There's a reason why you were asked. Obviously, before all of this, you were very involved in your community and you were doing some amazing things. And I think some folks probably know you more from that than from your work as a state representative. Hopefully, at the end of all of this, they'll figure out the whole thing and put it all together. But could you tell us a little bit about the work that you were doing? I mean, there was a moment there where you just said, you like so many folks, you weren't very involved in local government. You weren't even very knowledgeable about how it really worked. But through, kind of the work that you were doing in your community, you saw the importance of that. So could you tell us a little bit about, the story, the origin story of where Michael
Sure,
Burton, the politician, came
sure.
from?
Elected official, not
Yes,
politician.
there you go. Yeah, I always hated it too. People would call me that all the time when I was running it. I'm like, oh man, it's weird, but yeah, I
I
don't
was at a
know.
town hall the other day, and someone was like, "You're a politician," and I was like, it was the first time it was put right in my face. So I consider myself an elected official.
There you go.
But basically, I grew up in Affton, and there was this really old, and it's coming back now, historic driving range golf course called Tower T that Bob Hope had played at and Johnny Carson had played at. And it was there for 55 years. I grew up walking down the street with my dad and hitting a bucket of balls there. And in Affton, it was just kind of like the character of the community. It was this family-friendly place. And at the time, I was living in California, and I heard that they wanted to tear it all down and build 150 houses there. And I was like, hold up, this is a bad idea. This is a really bad idea for many reasons. And so I just started to make phone calls. And I just made a lot of phone calls and got a lot of advice to start going to county council meetings. And started going to county council meetings, and they told me, well, one of the county council members told me, Michael, you keep coming here, but you need to start getting more people here.
Hmm.
So I started to go door to door and put little flyers on people's doors and started to carpool people into the county council meetings because it's tough when you're in unincorporated St. Louis County to
Right.
get people to go to Clayton. But but we started going week after week, and I just kept going, and it lasted 18 months, and it was taking on the largest housing developer in Missouri, and it was quite the fight, but we did it. And Tower T is now going to reopen in a few months, and it is going to be one of the most like incredible facilities, like way more amazing than I ever imagined it to be. So that's kind of how the community got to know me. Is I was like, I went door to door selling yard signs for and got yard signs out, and so like I'm known as like the Save Tower T guy, and then people know me, and now they've elected me to be their state representative. So that's kind of how I got into this whole thing.
Yeah. Tower T, by the way, on a personal note, man, I can't even count how many times I've been there, man. I was so thrilled. I drove my wife right by there. Oh, it was a few, during, pandemic stuff, and you're not really going out too much, just driving around. And she actually grew up in Florida. She's been here for a while, but she doesn't know all of these things. If you're born here and you're born in St. Louis, everybody's like, oh, where did you go to high school, all that kind of stuff. But there's like an ingrained understanding, and for some reason, like you, and I was literally thinking about it because I live pretty close to a Ted Drew's right now. It's like I associate you and the work that you did like as important and essential to St. Louis as like Ted Drew's is, which is why I always get hungry whenever I've like, oh, sort of brings up Representative Burton. So it's Tower T meant like, it's like all the kids go there. Parents are always there with kids. If you ever played like softball leagues in the summer and your swing was really bad and you had to go fix it, Tower T is the place you went. And, it had such a meaning. And, I'm sure you hear these kind of stories all the time, and you shared so many of them with the county council. That I think, folks kind of realized the importance of it. And through your organizing work, you really brought a community together around this thing that's become such a symbolic piece of growing up there. And I just think that's really cool. Not only do I think it's really cool, but it's something that I think is really the future of, and it's really the past too, but it should be the future of what organizing and political work in Missouri should look like. There was a comment that came through here, and it was right as you were talking about the supermajority, but it says, it's from Amy, one can only work with the party that wants to work with us. Supermajority does its will on us. And yeah, that's hard, like when you have one party that's, way in power and they can pretty much do anything they want. There's not that much accountability from, another side. There's not that much balance like we've had before in Missouri. And, a lot of folks have kind of thought about how do we come back and bring that balance and get more folks from different parties elected. And I really think it's through the kind of community work that you are doing, where you get folks really energized about their community, about some issue, and you help them get to that point where now they're bringing more people in, they're doing something for their community, and eventually those are wonderful people that you want to call and say, hey, have you considered running for office? I think your story is just such a great model for what we should be doing throughout the rest of the state, and it's something that I've been working on personally.
And I also want to point out that, I've said this a couple times, that and the way that I kind of always looked at it is, even if we lost Tower T, I still would have been okay with it. Because we gave it our all. We fought as much as we possibly could. So, it's easy for me to say that now, of course. But that's kind of the mind frame. When I was first starting, I was going door to door and saying, granted, this is a very bad strategy. I wouldn't encourage it. But I would say, I think we have a 4% chance of saving this place. And they were like, okay, 4% chance. Because everybody tells you, it's a done deal. You're wasting your time. And I was like, no, we have a 4% chance of saving this place. And that percentage kept growing. But even if we lost it, I still would have been okay, because we fought like hell and we gave it our all. And it was also kind of cool because that was a way that I met the community and learned about other things that are concerning them. And so some of those things that I learned back in 2018, things that I'm fighting for now, because I learned them back then.
Right.
So But it's been quite a journey for sure.
Hmm. What, I guess for other folks who are, they've got an issue, and I've seen this all over the state, right? From like saving your local animal shelter to, helping a group of kids fundraise for something to, we just had a great example in Livingston County of a group of folks who got together and, even took some legal action too. They organized folks against, one of these factory farms, and they were successful. And so, I mean, I guess from your experience, you went through it. You started out with a 4% chance and you made something out of it. But, it was you and everybody else, right? Just you doing that would have only gone so far. You had to bring other folks in. I mean, obviously you've learned a whole lot through that. But what is something that you think, before you started, like you were here, and then you went from this position to all of a sudden being super active and doing all these things. What is it? One, I guess, that got you to that point. But then two, what do you think would have, obviously you went through it, but what do you think would have made it easier for you to move to that point? Like, I'm sure there were times where you're just like, man, this is nuts. Like, what am I doing? This is gonna be a whole lot of work. But like something that would have maybe helped you, or like at least if you're seeing like somebody else in that position who might be willing, like, this is just too much. What do you think would have helped somebody like in that position move forward with an effort like this?
I don't know if I can say that there's anything that would have helped me in that situation.
Hmm.
What I would say for anybody thinking about doing something like that is just make lots of phone calls. Just make tons and tons of phone calls. And whenever they say, okay, well, I can't really help you out, I don't think I'm the person to call, say, okay, well, who do you think that I should call? Who do you
Hmm.
think can give me this information? I mean, there was that situation was so complex in so many different ways that I was calling so many different people, as far as environmental agencies and also public office holders and local officials and everything.
Yeah.
That it's not something that's necessarily just going to be there to help you. Um, you've got to make that promise to yourself that you're going to see it out to the end. And I had told myself, I was like, you know what? Until I see bulldozers rolling down Higgy Road, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going. And there's a lot of times, honestly, that I felt like all hope is lost. I mean, especially towards
Yeah.
the end, they basically purchased the property without it being rezoned, which is unheard of.
Hmm.
And they slapped up their housing developer sign on there, and um, and it was tough, but you make that promise to yourself and you just keep going until the very end.
Hmm.
And so you try to get that mind framed, and you also try to get help. People are willing to help if you're willing to ask for it. And so that's what I would recommend is just make phone calls and keep making phone calls. And even if you go to a county council meeting and you have a bad week, nobody shows up, and you didn't do well in front of the council, come back the next week.
Yeah. 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 It's man. So I guess now since you've gone through the experience where you were going to county council meetings a whole lot. You were interacting with county council members. You were doing public comment and everything else. How has that? I mean, I would assume, like, from your perspective now, since part of what you do as a state representative is you're interacting with, the folks who have elected you, the folks in your district, the folks who, might not have voted for you, but who have issues that they want to bring to you. How is that, the experience that you had trying to interact with elected officials before you were elected, how has that impacted, I guess, how you deal with folks now when they come to you, with a request or just needing information or needing help?
I don't think that it's affected me that much.
Hmm.
I don't think that experience has affected me that much. Like, I generally like to help people,
Yeah.
and so if you're someone that likes to help people and you like to fight for the people and you like to fight for what's right, that's kind of built within you, and it's something that I kind of had, but I didn't realize I had.
Hmm.
Kind of, you know, And so people need to realize they might have that inside them, that they can get out there and fight. But, the more you talk to people, the better you're going to get at talking to people, the better you're going to get at making comments on a public forum. At the time, the county executive said, he goes, I've seen you get better and grow. And so it's just like anything else. You just have to do it, and you end up getting better at it. And now I'm a state representative. So it's something that I think there was one time where I said, and I remember Steve Stanger was sitting there, and I looked right at him. He's our previous county executive that's now in prison. And I said, I just did it. I just did it. Just did it. And then I thought it was going to last like 4 months, but it lasted 18 months. I just did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of folks, in somewhat of a similar boat, right, where they're in the middle of something, they see that something wrong is happening and they want to fix it, and oftentimes, the first thing that you think of is, oh, but I can't do this, or I don't know that, or whatever it is. But I mean, you're so right. Like, ask your friends for help, right? That's what they're there for. And what's really nice about something like this is that it's not like you're asking for something that's bigger than any one person, right? It's something that so many folks are going to want to be a part of. So, how some folks have told to me that I've always taken to heart is you're inviting people to be a part of this with you. And I mean, look how amazing it is if something like this works out, or even even like you said, like even if it didn't work out, just all the building that you did to that point meant so much, and it meant so much for everybody there. That, I mean, what a cool thing to be a part of. Why, don't hog it. Like, ask other people to be in there. And
That's right.
You sure did, and I think a lot of people respected you for it. I mean, goodness, the comments that are coming in are just all like, "Oh, we love you, Michael. You're so great." And so, I mean, it's just like, it's obviously a great community that you've been able to build around this, and that's so important. We do have a question. It's a little bit personal, and I do know that sometimes you haven't had it. Somebody wants to know about the beard. Like, what's going on? Like, is it a thing? Like, what is it? Somebody, I mean, apparently they're a big fan, but they just want to know the story behind it, if there is one, and there usually is behind a beard like that.
What? I've had a beard for a while. I've had a beard even going back years and years and years, and it's come and go. For my little brother's wedding, I got rid of it. But right now, because my campaign manager and some other people are like, Michael, you got to get rid of the beard. You got to get rid of the beard. You just have to do it. And I trimmed just a little bit at the time. I was like, okay. But I've let it go, because when I'm on that floor, and I actually wear this coat every single day. I wear the same coat, and I got this beard. And I'm like, look, I can look like a homeless guy, and I'm still going to kick your ass every single day. And so that's kind of my thought process behind it is, they all have these fancy suits and fancy haircuts, and I'm like, I can look like this and still bring it to you. So that's kind of my thought process behind the beard. It's been fun, because a lot of people are confused. But it's just to kind of separate myself from all of the other people,
Right.
But next session, it might not be there. We'll see.
Oh, wow. Oh, did you just make some news on the show here? I mean, goodness.
Who knows? I always got to keep them guessing. That's my whole thing. Keep them guessing.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's distinct, right? So that folks are like, oh, I know who that guy is from the moment that he's out there, and it's fun. That's fun. That's very like game day mentality, right? I think a lot of football players, it might be because of the helmets and the concussions and stuff, but they're all like, oh yeah, we need something like this too. So that's fine. No hate. I think it's great. Heck, I mean, I've had to do stuff like that. I'm not the tallest person in the world, and you've got to embrace that at some point. So, you just kind of run with it, and I look like I'm 12.
Either.
I've tried to grow something like that. I was the opposite. My campaign manager was like, do something different, and I'm like, I really can't. it's it would take the whole 18 months to get even something
I
going.
remember
So.
I remember when I first started to follow you, and I was like, oh my God, that guy looks like a kid. I was like, he looks so young. I remember thinking that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, I remember that.
Yeah, I talked to a few. I've been at my campaign events. I was carded 3 different times, and that was great. I'm like, nah, I'm actually gonna be speaking in a second. I'm the guy running for. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was pretty
Elad, you
good.
did such an amazing job. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I just have to say, you were such an inspiration for me in this state, and you know that. But I
Oh,
mean,
thanks.
you were the fact that you went around to all those different rural areas and met with the people, and everything that you do with your lawsuits and everything and social media is so inspiring. And I just have to say that.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I had a great time. I think, um, it's kind of like a similar understanding, right? I just really appreciated being able to invite other folks to kind of do this thing with me, right? And it was a great time. Heck, I went over and visited my friends over in Lincoln County, the ones who I won this flag from back on the campaign trail. Nicole Galloway was at that event, actually. That was a good time. And I think I'm going, well, I have to respond to them, but I'm looking at my calendar, but I think I'm going to go visit Benton County for a parade. So, yeah, we'll just be
Nice.
going around, and it's nice. Like, there's folks all over who really want to be a part of, something that's big. It's something that's bringing change and that's really focused on people. And, I think that there's certainly a lot of work that we can do in Missouri, and that's a great segue to what work do you think that we should be doing in Missouri? So you're a state representative now. You've been through session. You've seen the fun of all of that, and we've got a few issues. Some good stuff that's been coming out of the legislature, and the governor's been a big supporter of. So some good things certainly happening in Missouri. You got any highlights from stuff that you weren't expecting or did expect? Things that went
Well,
well. Things that we should be watching out for.
Well, I mean, just the fact that we got the PDMP bill through, which is the prescription drug monitoring program,
Mm-hmm.
was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really important issue that senator. It was really interesting. There was one day, all the Democrats, we were about to get our class photo. We were all standing by the rotunda, and this woman walked up and she was like, "How are you guys feeling about?" And I forget the number of the Senate bill, and we kind of responded to her, and I leaned over to LaDonna Applebaum, and I'm like, wow, that's a really good lobbyist. I'm like, she just really came up to all the Democrats and is just putting it out there. And LaDonna leaned over, she goes, that's a senator. I was like, oh, that's her. And she'd been working on that monitoring program for 9 years.
Yeah.
9 years. And
Yeah.
she finally got it through. The fact that we got the Wayfair tax through, I think, is amazing. We stopped a lot of really bad legislation as far as, Rush Limbaugh Day, Rush Limbaugh Highway, all kinds of, eliminating all kinds of different bills that we got stopped.
Mm-hmm.
That the second to last day we left session, there were so many upset Republicans where I was trying to be like, hey, how's it going? I'll see you tomorrow. And they were not having it. They were so furious. And on the very final day, same thing. There was so much infighting between the Republicans that, and the reality is, the less that they get passed, the better it is for us. As far as what we should be doing, we have to hit rural Missouri. We have got to have more Democrats in the House. There's 48 of us out of 163. And we have to reach back out, like Elad has done, to rural Missouri and find those seats and flip them. Even if we flipped 5 or 6 or 7, that's going to make a huge difference. There is a new caucus, or a caucus that's being revamped. And I think you were on that first call. I think it's the Rural Missouri Caucus or something.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've been a member of that. That was the first caucus I ever joined. That was in 2016. I've been hanging out with them for a while. Yeah. It's a good group.
If you can put that in the comments,
Yeah, I sure will.
everybody on here that cares about, you know, the issues that the Democrats are fighting for in the state of Missouri needs to be on that caucus. So even if it's not in your district and not in St. Louis County, you have got to get on that caucus to flip those seats in rural Missouri. And some of them are close. And so that is what I would say we need to do. We need to reach out to that more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great group. Oh, man. The first meeting I ever went, it was at Moberly, and there was snow on the ground. I remember that because it was a little bit of a drive. And former Lieutenant Governor Joe Maxwell was there, and he, wish he would run for something again. I've talked to his mom about it. So it's a family in Mexico, Missouri, and he was Lieutenant Governor, the last Democratic Lieutenant Governor in Missouri, because then Peter Kinder took over, and he understands like what's going on, family that's been involved in agriculture for a long time too. And for those of you who don't know, Mexico, Missouri is a more rural area in the state. Actually not too far from Troy where I was hanging out. And I think that's a caucus that can do a whole lot of good. So we'll definitely put that in the comments for folks who are interested. Definitely check them out and get involved. Heck, I mean, first meeting, I was like, hey, I was the only one from the city. And I said, hey, is it okay if I hang out? Man, I came in my suit and everything. And they looked at me. It's like, well, you pay your dues. And I said, yeah. It's like, all right, well, that's fine with me. And so that's it. I mean, it's they're going to be very focused on organizing, getting the word out, a lot of messaging. I work a lot with them just to bring more people in. It was really cool. Yeah, there were a few state representatives who joined that call. I'm remembering now. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, cool organizing work that we can do around the state, and that's going to be happening very soon. So that's a great idea. I think Springfield, there's some seats there that can maybe move, and we've got some redistricting stuff that's happening soon. So we don't even know what that looks like yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Man, so what's that? How does that feel right now? Like you just got in, and now the data was delayed. Man, what a crazy time to be in Missouri government. How is that process going right now?
As far as the redistricting?
Yeah.
Well, it's happening.
Yeah, right.
And it is crazy because it's like, if I want to go knock on doors or people are asking me, about, because you're only in this office for 2 years.
Right.
So what I realize is you kind of get voted in, and now after session, people are already kind of, we have to keep these seats blue, and we can't take it for granted. So we have to fight for those seats and make sure that we get them. Mm-hmm. And, the redistricting, we don't know what's going to happen with that. I've kind of tried to keep that just completely to the side.
Yeah.
And I just fight. I speak up when I can, and don't worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah. Probably the best way to deal with that, because who the heck knows? But
exactly.
Yeah.
Until we see it.
Until you see it. Seeing's believing, right? We've got a question. Ooh, we've got a comment from about Kansas City. All right, let me put this up on here. This is from Tracy. Kansas City must have help regaining local control. The Republican legislators stopped gun safety measures. It may not directly affect your district, but we can't do it without help. So for those of you who don't know, and St. Louis City used to be like this, but there was a time where St. Louis City's police board was controlled by the state. That is still true for Kansas City. That was something that happened for Kansas City, it was in the late 30s, I want to say, and it was because of a lot of, if you haven't read any Truman biographies and all that kind of stuff, there was a very big boss system in Kansas City, and so the control was basically taken away from the local government and given to the state as a result of this kind of corrupt machine politics, or at least, one side really wanted it and they were playing with each other, because that's usually how it worked back then. But it's never been returned to Kansas City. And so now I know there's, a lot of discussion, and some politicians are taking some shots at the mayor in Kansas City, saying, oh, they want local control so they can defund the police. And then, the mayor's like, no, actually, I'm trying to give them more money, but we want them to be accountable to the local people. So there's just like all this stuff going on. But the bottom line is, pretty much everywhere in Missouri right now, you control your local police department if you have one. Some of them consolidated, some of them probably need to consolidate, but you do have some input in your local police. There's local control over there other than Kansas City. And now that is becoming, it appears, a very big issue. There's some of your fellow legislators who are calling for a special session right now to address, whether Kansas City should have this or not, or even the authority that he's been using the budget for right now. So yeah, what's going on with all of that? What are your thoughts about, what's happening in Kansas City?
Well, as far as Kansas City and their police department, I honestly don't know a lot about it.
Sure.
I don't really focus on stuff like that when it's having to deal with Kansas City. But I will tell you that it's really interesting that so many Republicans in the state legislature that I've had to say, wait a minute, aren't we all about local control? Like, aren't we all about having the local governments taking care of things? Isn't that a conservative idea? And why is the state constantly trying to come in here and tell the local governments what to do? And it's a problem that we have, and but we have been able to push back on some of that. I know House Bill 75 that Representative Murphy put forward. It had to do with public health orders to shut down businesses for COVID-19. And he's from St. Louis County, and of course, the conservatives have a huge problem with Sam Page. So he put legislation in that basically said after a certain amount of shutdown that it would then go to the state legislature to decide if the shutdowns could continue. And I made the argument that it should not go to the state legislature. It should go back to St. Louis County Council to make that decision, even if it's not Sam Page. And he actually, and I put an amendment forward for that, and he changed it to go back to the local governments. So that's definitely a problem.
Yeah. I think that's it's definitely like there's a philosophy around this, and I think I can understand we might disagree with what a local government is doing, right? And that's fine. Like, we can have those disagreements. It just worries me when we see that those disagreements kind of get elevated to the point where it's like, well, let's just abolish all of those folks who are being elected locally and are dealing with local issues. Let's just make it a state
and we're going to
thing.
take care of it now.
Yeah,
we're going to make those decisions.
It's like right, and like you just said, like, I mean,
you're
going to
let rural
Kansas
Missouri
City.
decide what happens in St. Louis County.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, COVID, there was adults going to St. Louis Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to explain to them during committee is, if things get really bad, and we already have adults going to St. Louis Children's Hospital, why are we going to have the state legislator, all these rural Missourians, deciding what's going to happen in St. Louis County with my constituents? So if we have full ICUs, we have a lack of nurses, and somebody has a heart attack or gets in a car accident, and they can't get the proper treatment, these are my constituents. You don't have to worry about it, but this is my district. And so that's the argument that I was making, that state government has its place, but when it comes to certain things, I don't trust the state government to decide on a local issue when it comes to health.
Right. And I mean, that's
and we got that changed.
That's I mean, that's great. A lot of maybe for folks who are a little bit less familiar. So there's these bills, right? Folks are proposing laws, and they're moving sometimes from the Senate, sometimes from the House. So kind of similar to National Congress. There's two chambers. And as those bills move through, it goes to the other chamber. They have to agree. Sometimes they have to come to a conference and make sure it all is the same. And then there's a final vote. Then it goes to the governor for signature or veto or whatever might happen. But one of the I guess one of the avenues, especially for Democrats, since Democrats are in the super minority right now, is getting changes to bills that are being proposed, because in all likelihood, a lot of these things are going to get passed, right? And so you're trying to make them better, or at least less bad. And so the amendment process. I guess I mean in this situation, it's a great example. Have you found the amendment process? I'm sure it's not total. It's not a fail-safe by any means, because they could just reject the amendment. But it sounds like you've had at least some success with the amendment process so far.
Yeah, I got that one amendment put on. Of course, they don't put your name on it or anything, but
Right.
they did that change. I did get a Republican to say on the floor to accept one of my amendments, and I thought it was going to go through. I thought it was going to go through, but the Republicans still voted it down. I will tell you a story about Representative Kimberly Ann Collins, and she is a freshman in the legislature. She put an amendment forward regarding food deserts and making sure that there was going to be a tax incentive for empty lots, so people could create urban gardens to grow food in places where they need more fresh vegetables and fruit and whatnot. And she worked so hard on this dang bill. I mean, in committee, we watched her, and she worked so hard. She got it through committee. The Republicans were on board. She got to the House chambers. She offered it on the floor, this amendment, and the Republican sponsor of the bill was okay with it. We all thought it was going to go through, and then the Republicans voted it down. And she left the chambers, and she was upset. A bunch of us went over to her and gave her a hug, and I was like, I love you, girl. I just gave her a hug, and I was like, God bless you. She worked so hard on this, and she came right back in 30 minutes later and filed that amendment on another bill. And the Democrats started to text all of their Republican friends, like, come on, guys, let her get this through. This is food deserts. This is something that has gone through committee. Everybody agrees with it. Let her get this through. And she got it. And that was kind of a cool thing to see. So the amendment process can definitely be a good one. And you just have to fight for it. I mean, she came right back in and made her case again, and they changed their mind. Mm-hmm. So 30 minutes later, same amendment, and they changed their mind.
Yeah, man. Nice.
It was one of the coolest things that I've seen.
Yeah. That's real. I mean, it's really cool. Just like the image of everybody kind of like texting folks across. It's like, hey guys, can you get this together? I mean, the relationships mean so much, right? If you're not working, especially if you are in this position where basically you have to convince somebody to do this. It's not like you are in full control of anything. Those relationships really, really matter. I wonder. There was. I always think about this. Years and years ago, there was a senator. He was from Indiana, wasn't he? Senator By, and he wrote this column upon like saying I'm done, I'm not doing anything. I think he tried to make a comeback later on, but at the time it seemed like it was something. And he said that he was just so frustrated with how really people from Republicans and Democrats weren't really talking to each other anymore. Like he was there, and at one point folks had been kind of conversing with one another, and they would have, I think he mentioned like some lunches that they would have, and so there were these relationships that got built. I think President Biden talks about this all the time when he was a senator, and he'd been there for a very long time. In Jefferson City, I know that you have made an effort to like reach out to folks across the aisle on a personal level. But I wonder, are there a lot of opportunities right now in Missouri for Democrats and Republicans to really just kind of like hang out with each other and get to know each other and develop these kinds of relationships? It sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, because of COVID, I generally don't go out, but we had this really cool softball charity tournament that I got an email that I was invited to. I was like, yeah, I'll do a softball charity tournament, and I was just put on this team, and I think there was 9 teams total, and we each played 2 teams. Well, the people that didn't move on played 2 teams, And the first team that I played was called the PQs, which I'm sure you know what a PQ is. But PQ, for people that don't know, is previous question, which the House Floor Majority Leader will put up during debate to shut down debate from the Democrats. And I've been PQ'd my fair amount of times this session. And all of a sudden, I'm up to bat, and the House Floor Majority Leader, Dean Plocker, is pitching a softball to me. I couldn't believe it. And then the second game that I played, I decided, they needed, the pitching wasn't going well for our team. We got crushed the first game because he stacked his
Pitching's
team.
important. Yeah.
He got all the best on Plocker's team, and so we didn't have a chance. I think we lost like 13-1. But then the second game, I was like, all right, I'm gonna pitch, and all of a sudden I'm pitching against, the Speaker of the House, Rob Vescovo, and then at the end, even though they crushed us as well, we all, did the high five. Good game, good game, good game. And so there are those moments where you can you're kind of putting everything to the side and just kind of building those relationships. I didn't expect it to be with the House Floor Majority Leader or the Speaker of the House, but it was a good thing. And I'll tell you about that second one. I was pitching to Speaker Vescovo, and he hit a pop fly, and it was right in front of me, and I could have like ran and caught it, and I like had to make the split decision of, do I go and catch it and get him out, or do I, let it fall, let him get on first base and try to get some brownie points, and I let it fall. And he got on first, and he ended up scoring. I was like, that's okay. That's okay. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, I play a lot of softball. I'm throwing him out immediately. I'm probably dropping the ball when it's coming, but I'm throwing him out.
Yeah, no. Could have caught it.
That's fine. I understand. There's a long-term strategy there. So. Oh, that's great. That's a lot. See, I really do believe, and I can't believe I have not talked about softball as much as we have on this one. But I firmly believe that softball can bring the world together. I do, and so I'm very happy to hear that is a tradition that is ongoing in Jefferson City right now. That's great. Issues that you have you really want to see Missouri take a leadership role on. You're proposing bills, and that's your job now. So what are we proposing? What should we be doing here?
So my main bill and what I ran on is cutting property taxes for senior citizens. So going back to Tower T, that's something that I learned from knocking on doors is, especially in St. Louis County, these property taxes are getting jacked up every year, sometimes 25%. And a lot of people on fixed income, senior citizens, those that are disabled, they can't afford those increases, and they're having to ration between medication and food, and they're behind on their property taxes. And if they go over 2 years, they can lose their house. So we heard some legislation, and I was shocked this year. I heard legislation that addressed that issue, but it was so extreme. It was getting rid of all property taxes, and for a certain age group, or if you paid off your house, but it did nothing to compensate, the public schooling system, the fire districts. And my bill, it gives seniors a break on their property taxes, but it also, the state will compensate, so we're not losing funding for the public schooling system and for our fire departments. So it's more of a reasonable bill, and some people don't like when they hear the word reasonable, but that's my goal. And I've gone office to office in the hallways of the Capitol, and I've talked to Republicans, and I get to know them, and then I say, well, what are you here for? And they tell me, and then I go, okay, well, this is what I'm here for. And the majority of them have been on board with it. Now, the Speaker didn't let me get my bill heard this year. But I'm hoping, because I let that ball fall, then next year he will. And I'll just tell you this because I've had an interesting relationship with the Speaker of the House.
Okay.
But second to last week, I was standing there in the hallway, and he came up to me. One of the, like, Don Room, Representative Don Room. He's like the godfather of all the representatives. He owns like 602 acres down in the Boot Hill. He's like, he's amazing, the knowledge he has. And he had gotten food for all the representatives in the hallway, and I was getting food. And all of a sudden, Rob Escovo came up, and he goes, "What's up, Burton?" And I was like, turned around, I was like, I can't believe the Speaker of the House just spoke to me. So that was the second to last week. So I still think that we're on good terms.
Okay.
But cutting property taxes for seniors,
yeah,
that's my biggest one. And if I can get that through, I'll be very happy. I've also had a problem with the fact that we're starting to hunt the Missouri black bear for the first time ever. And 40 black bears can be hunted a year right now, and I've had a big problem with that because I think it's just one of the most majestic, amazing creatures, especially in the state of Missouri. And I got a call from the Missouri Department of Conservation today. They're going to take me out on June 4th to do some research on some bears. So I'm kind of working with that issue as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that should be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Speaker of the House, it's because I get to watch a lot of the sessions, and I actually look at a lot of the bills that are being proposed, and I kind of post them when session is open so that folks can give public comment. And I personally have a lot of respect for him and the way that he's managed session, and there are certainly things that we disagree on, but heck, I mean, you can't really find people who don't disagree on something. And I mean, it's good to hear, especially from like the relationship standpoint, how that's progressing and how that's maintained. I just think it's such an important part of government in general, because you lose that, you really lose so much and so much access, and then people are just kind of, I'm just putting up something and we're not even listening to you, and that doesn't help anybody. We really want more voices in this whole thing, and the more the merrier. So that's fun. So you're going on a little bear trip. That would be a good time. If you see any, let us know. Man, we've been trying to do some of these shows on the road now, and we've got some good ideas for some. We might be at a local fair near some folks pretty soon. We'll announce that later, but I don't know if we'd. If you do see a friendly bear who wants to be interviewed, let me know. We'll book the bear.
I'll take a picture. Okay,
that's fine. Pictures are probably good. That's the property tax thing, I think, is a really important one. I know there were a number of bills that was on that topic, so it sounds like there probably is some potential movement there. Maybe next session. I know this one kind of ended in a more of an abrupt way, but it sounds like that's
which is good for us.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Anybody who's well, I don't know. Maybe you'll be singing a different tune if they call special session. You have to look yourself back over there.
Oh no! All these things are going to come back up. Yeah. All these things are going to come back up, but they got to go through the whole process again.
Yeah. Yeah, which is right, exactly. So that's a whole lift right there. Oh, we have a couple questions. Okay, so before we close it out, we've got a couple questions on some policy stuff. We had okay, so here's a question about there was a bear sighting. Okay, great. All right, here we go. So this is from Melissa. Hi, Melissa. Hello. So it sounds like likes your bill about the property taxes. Ozark just had a bear sighting today. Wow, that's. What do you think about the proposed bill about not teaching critical race theory? That was a bill. It was proposed. It actually did a whole lot more than that. It wasn't just critical race theory. Which, by the way, like all these folks who are talking about it, I mean, they don't even know what the heck this thing is. It is like something that some debate students in high school were using a bit. And that you talk about in some of these college classes that I could never handle, like upper philosophy stuff about, how do we see this through this kind of lens or that kind of lens, a capitalist thing, and it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I just like to read, and that's pretty good. But some folks are really into it, and there's like all these conversations with professors and stuff. But it's really, this bill was so wide ranging. I mean, it talked about like not teaching about people and like saying like it sounded like to the point where we can't talk about enemies of each other in a war, for example. Like World War II would be very difficult to teach if you're talking about folks who are being persecuted or folks who are doing the persecuting or societies that were like in this. It was just all over. I mean, it even included some like local public radio like lesson plans and stuff. I don't know. That thing was pretty wild to me, but I don't know.
It wasn't from what I read of that bill, it wasn't just addressing critical race theory. It was like Elad just said, it was going to, the language in the bill was so vague that it could pertain to so many different things that would not be taught in school. And that was a huge problem. And thankfully we got that bill stopped. I have not read critical race theory. That is something that I'm going to be doing as we're out of session, so I can have a better idea of it. Same thing with the 1619 project. So, but it was something that was debated. It was debated quite a bit on the floor, and we were able to stop them from preventing teaching that. Because we all know, I mean, if you're paying attention, we know the way that we grew up in the public school system. We didn't really learn the true history of quite a few things. Right. And it's important to teach the actual history and what actually happened. It doesn't mean that, we're a racist country. We can still have systemic racism problems, which we obviously do. But the whole term, we're a racist country is just kind of a strange thing. And so that's going to be coming up again, but it's very important that we teach students the actual history of what happened in this country. It doesn't make you a bad person because you're white. It just means that we're learning about the actual history. So I can't speak on it too much until I read that book. But we were able to stop it this session, and I'm sure it's going to be coming up again, because right now the Republicans, it's all about the culture war stuff. It's about what they, I watch a fair amount of Fox News, and it's about what they see on Fox News. Right. They talk about it all the time, and so it's just to create a lot of fear and whatnot. But we have to teach actual history.
Yeah. I think for far too long. And here's the problem, right? If you don't teach history as it happened, right? And like here, you want to talk about some other theory, we can talk about, well, who's actually writing history and doing all of this. But that's where we are now, right? We're looking back and we're saying, what are we going to teach kids? And part of that educational component is, we hope that our kids then take over and they do a way better job than us. And the way that you learn from history is you have to learn history, and you don't make those same mistakes again. But then you get like stuff like this that's thrown together so that we can get a headline, and this is happening all over the country. That's the thing that really infuriates me is when we have bills in Missouri that are not just for Missouri. Like they are, somebody Xeroxed the darn thing. Sometimes they even forget to change the state name when they propose it, but not so much in Missouri. It's happened at some other place. It's just like it's like, why are we talking about this right now? And it's like, that's not the problems here. We know that's not the problem. We can talk about, just like you were talking about, like for seniors and property taxes and staying in their homes, or small businesses.
Medicaid expansion.
Medicaid expansion. Healthcare. For people, and now not just Medicaid expansion, but heck, the whole system is being defunded right before our eyes because we can't, come to an agreement on. I mean, somebody just wants to make some point about how pro-life they are, and sorry, I'm going to be ranting a little bit here, but you could all see this. And then they're talking about how we're trying to stop all of this money from going to abortion. None of the money was going to go to abortions; it goes to contraceptives. So we don't have that issue. And it's just like folks who are coming in and just want to make it about them instead of making it about serving the public. That's what really infuriates me. And oh man, when I see those bills that are just like, why am I hearing about this in multiple states, and why have I not heard of this being? I mean, I've been teaching for a long time, and I work with kids all over the state, and man, like there are some scary stories that we can pull out of the hat anywhere you want, but those are few and far between oftentimes, and there are some seriously scary stories about things that are happening, and thankfully we're doing some stuff about that, like some of these whatever they were, like boarding school type things that were unregulated, and thank goodness we did something about that, and it's taken far too long to do it, but those are actual issues here.
Did a lot of work on that, which was really amazing. But the reality is that, you know, the people voted for Medicaid expansion. I mean, that's just the reality. And they voted for it, which means it's in the Missouri Constitution. So when it's in the Constitution, this is something that we should be doing and should be funding because it's the will of the people. And we also have to keep in mind, this is health care for the poorest Missourians. It's not a single-payer health care system. It's not health care for all. This is for the poorest Missourians. And that's what the people wanted. Right. And so that part is disappointing. And I'm on committee for special committee for small businesses. And I remember one time when we were hearing a bill from the budget chair, and it was about to overturn the will of the people again for the minimum wage for $12 an hour. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, here we are during a pandemic where we have small businesses struggling.
Yeah.
And we have money to help them get through this pandemic. And here we are voting on to reduce the minimum wage. Why are we voting to reduce the minimum wage when we're in small business committee and these small businesses are struggling right now? So those are things that I typically speak up about, and I let them know how I feel.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
You know, this is it's so important because those small businesses are still struggling right now. You know.
Right. Man, well, God bless you for doing it. Man, I know it can get frustrating sometimes, and you know, it's work, and we need folks to be there representing. So it's certainly greatly appreciated. Man, look at this. We're already past 7. I did not mean for that to happen, but you know what I'm going to do for you, and I always do it. I want to give you a chance, Mr. Representative, to let us know, like any closing thoughts that you've got. You know, the floor, the virtual floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I would just say for the people that, you know, if you care about the ideas that, you know, President Biden wants to get done, if you are so excited that, you know, our previous president is not there anymore, but you're happy that this new president is there, and those are the ideas that you stand behind, you know, get involved in Missouri politics and find a candidate and fight for them. You know, I know it can get mundane, you know, asking for phone calls and emails and all that stuff, but they really do make a difference. I've seen it myself. I mean, we get all of those emails, we get all of those phone calls, and when we've seen those larger groups come in and make their point, they've really made a difference. Mm-hmm. And so the one positive thing that I would say is the power really is in the hands of the people. And that's the one positive thing that I've gotten out of this experience so far in my 5 or 6 months being in the state legislature. And the good news is I've never had a lobbyist offer me money for a vote. Now, that might just be because they know that would be a bad idea with me, or I'm not on big committees, but that's never happened. So that's a good thing.
That's good.
But the power really is in the hands of the people. So find those candidates. I'll give you a good one right now if you're in St. Louis County. Look up Ann Zimford and follow Ann Zimford. She's gonna be running again for a seat, and she's absolutely amazing. And just realize that you know, the last session or last election we gained a seat. This past session, a lot of Republicans left really pissed off, and I think that means that the Democrats are doing good work. I don't like to see pissed off people, but you know, when it comes to legislation, that means the Democrats are doing good work, and I'm proud of the work that we did. I mean, we stood up on that floor and we fought.
Yeah.
And so just stay involved and keep making those phone calls and keep reaching out.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. A lot of folks put in the comments in, they're thanking you too. Thanks for coming on. It was great to have you.
Absolutely. Elad Gross, this guy's like my hero, and I'm like, he's like, you want to come on my show? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. I love this guy. So it was an absolute pleasure, man.
Oh, that's great. No, thanks for being on. Feelings mutual, yeah, this was great. I really appreciate it and all the work that you're doing. So thanks for your service to the state of Missouri, and for everybody who's watching right now, we'll be on again. You know where to find us, and anytime over at eladgross.live. Go ahead, share the video, let folks know if you liked it. Put in a comment. You got some suggestions for who we should have on. Let me know, and we will see you all soon. You all take care.